The disturbance in the southwest Gulf of Mexico will likely develop in the next couple of days, and two more problem spots in the Atlantic to track as well. Your forecast across the Caribbean and the Bahamas starts right now.
This is Meteo Mundo.
Hi friends, Rusty back at Meteo Mundo. Fantastic to see you on a Sunday, a little bit earlier than usual, but hope you're having a great weekend. Coming up in this video, we've got our area in the southwest Gulf of Mexico that should begin to develop throughout the day, and by tomorrow, Tuesday, we're likely going to have a depression or a tropical storm. We also now have these two areas I mentioned in yesterday's video in the central Atlantic, but they are showing signs of life, and now there's a higher likelihood they could develop as they track west closer to our area throughout the week. So we'll get into all of that. You know, I love to hear from you guys. Let me know in the comments section below what's been happening in your area, what the weather has been like. Have a specific question about the forecast, feel free to drop that in the comments section below. So we're going to talk about the here and now on this Sunday across our area, then deep dive into the forecast. You're looking at the broad enhanced satellite imagery, the live lightning data here. Hang on. The live lightning data here at Meteo Mundo. Sorry, I clicked that layer off. And all the numbers that you see are wind gusts in miles an hour. So we are, of course, going to start with what's happening right now in the southwest Gulf of Mexico. We do have Invest 91L. So again, we have an area now where the tropical models can begin to run. Winds are actually around 40 miles an hour at this point in time. Again, it's far southwest side of the Bay of Campeche there at this point in time. I'm going to take off that red area so it's just a little bit easier to see. Notice that the lightning is really beginning to pump up in that area from time to time. There's a hurricane reconnaissance aircraft that's going to investigate this system, and although it might be slow to develop on this Sunday, within 24 and probably at most 48 hours, we're likely to get a tropical depression out of this area. Taking a look at the visible satellite imagery, we can clearly see again deeper convection, higher cloud tops, a bit of a spin in the southwest side of the Gulf. But again, this is a very interesting scenario because just north of there, along a frontal boundary which has continued to be draped over the northern side of the Gulf of Mexico, we have a second mid-level spin, and this mid-level spin is actually dropping off towards the south. You can see that on the surface map. Along this stalled out boundary, we have one area of mid-level low pressure, then we have our developing surface area of low pressure, and this one's moving north, and this one is slightly drifting off south and west. And there is a opportunity, a potential, if you will, that these two circulations do merge over the next day or two. So it's a scenario that we'll watch here. Again, this mid-level circulation is bringing some very gusty winds already to the northwest side of the Gulf and some intense rainfall. Most of that's just offshore at the hour, but there has been some very heavy rain for portions of the Texas coastline and into Louisiana and other portions of the the northern Gulf of Mexico. So that's what it looks like at this present time. Again, clear to see that kind of spin, that twist. As a matter of fact here, before we get off of that, what do you say we take a look at the enhanced satellite imagery with the viz? I love this look because it combines the visible and the infrared satellite imagery, so you get a clear kind of depiction of what's happening. Again, you see those whites and those grays. Those are really nice high cloud tops. The circulation is over the open waters, and that's going to be a big positive, if you will, for this to continue to develop because that center has not moved inland, and it's not forecast to do, which is why we expect this to strengthen. So we're going to get into this area in a lot more detail coming up in the forecast. But as I mentioned, I do want to talk about kind of the here and now across the rest of our area. There are a couple of spots that I want to point out here because we do have some active weather across some of our area. We're going to get into the Lesser Antilles right now. If you live all the way from Anguilla back down towards Trinidad and Tobago, you could see some heavier showers and storms for today. There have already been a few flood watches in effect. Barbados is another area that has gotten that, but there is more tropical moisture just to the east of the islands that will continue to move its way in. So even if you're dry right now, midday on your Sunday, later in the afternoon and the evening, you're going to have a better chance for some heftier showers and storms. And we've already had some heavy rain move across Barbados. That's going to try and get to St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Some of this is going to try and get towards Trinidad Trinidad and Tobago. Then you go far enough north and we're already in it right now. Martinique, a few showers and storms beginning to develop at the hour. Dominica, the rain is beginning to set in. You can see those higher cloud tops on over towards Guadeloupe. Some really impressive rainfall in some of these areas. We're talking about a few inches of rain, 2 to 3 inches locally higher, 50 to 75 millimeters, and more is coming. You can see some of the winds there towards Antigua, and some storms are developing south and west of the islands and then trying to lift their way north. So Montserrat, St. Kitts and Nevis, Saba, St. Eustatius, St. Bart's, Anguilla, St. Martin, all with passing showers, producing some winds of up to 30 miles an hour from time to time. This is what it looks like on the visible satellite imagery out of the area here. And again, I still have the enhanced part of this as well. So let me just go over to the Viz. And you can really see those bright whites. That's where we have the deepest convection. You can see those lightning strikes as well, but more is developing southwest of the Leeward Islands and working its way to the north. It's already been very active through Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands for today. Winds have picked up. We've had some good squally weather. We've had some flood advisories for some of these spots as well. So passing showers at the hour. St. Croix, winds nearly 30 miles an hour. St. Thomas, winds of around 30 miles an hour. St. John, Tortola, Virgin Gorda, Yost Van Dyke, Vieques, Culebra. Towards the Fajardo area, we've had a flood advisory down towards Humacao at the hour. We've also had another flood advisory on the far northwest side of the island, Isabela, towards Aguadilla. So we've had some spots of heavier rain, a couple of inches in some spots already in Puerto Rico, and heavier rain could continue to develop over the rest of the afternoon as well. What do you say we take a look at the radar here live on the southeast side of the island, and you can clearly see some of this heavier rain. Some of that's trying to spin back towards St. Croix. This is all kind of trying to, I'll put this into motion, kind of drift its way, if you will, almost a little bit to the north. It might take just a second here to loop this up. Might not be able to get it to loop up. That's okay. But Vieques, Culebra, the southeast sides of the islands here, right? Humacao, Fajardo, could see some showers moving back in towards San Juan, but it's a very active afternoon. San Sebastian, by the way, is also included in this current flood advisory, but several inches of rain have already fallen in some of these areas. So just be aware that it's going to be a very active day. Now you get west towards Punta Cana there in the Dominican Republic, not as expecting as much rain for today. A lot of that activity is going to mainly be confined to the northern side of the Lesser Antilles, the U.S. and British Virgin Islands, and Puerto Rico, but very gusty winds there. Otherwise, again, we'll see more scattered showers and storms coming back into portions of Panama, down over towards Costa Rica, then back over with a few scattered showers and storms for the Yucatan, obviously minus what's happening right now in the southwest Gulf of Mexico, Belize, Nicaragua, Honduras, and expecting a relatively quiet day through the Bahamas. Again, just a couple of isolated showers, mainly in the forecast for those spots. Friends, I appreciate you guys. You want to do me a quick payback. It's a simple one, but it's very important to the channel. Hit that like button for me right now. Want to continue to produce these daily videos. If you haven't subscribed to Meteo Mundo, please consider subscribing. Again, we are in the we still need to grow phase here at Meteo Mundo. So if you want to continue to see these updates, please like, please subscribe, please share with your family and friends. If you haven't done other ways to support the channel and you'd like to consider that, we have memberships for 99 cents a month. You can donate via the Super Thanks or via the PayPal and the Venmo links in the description below. And I appreciate all of those who have found that way to support me here at Meteo Mundo. All right, now we're going to get into the forecast here of what's going on in this area. And again, I'm hoping that my computer is going to let me loop back up this imagery, because for some reason over the last little bit here, it has been very stubborn. I'm trying to get it here on the fly to allow me to get back into the loop of the current imagery. So bear with me here. I'm going to try a couple different things on the fly. It's just not cooperating. Let's see here. Oh, there we go. Okay. I'm fiddling with buttons behind the scenes. I didn't want to stop this video, but now I can go ahead and loop back up the current imagery, which was the most important thing. All right, there we go. Apologize for that. It's like a little quirk in the system right now that I'm still trying to figure out why it's doing that. But I wanted to be able to loop back up what's happening right now in the southwest Gulf of Mexico. Once again, hefty showers and storms across the area. You can clearly see that at this point in time. Now, what's going to be happening is generally this is going to be pushing north over the next couple days. Again, slow development is likely over the next day or two, and then a little bit more of an increase in forward speed as it works its way up towards the northwest side of the Gulf of Mexico. So let me do this here. Let me bring on the forecast models. So you're looking now at, of course, those spaghetti plots. And the biggest thing to take with these as we follow these up the coastline is that a vast majority keep the center of circulation just offshore, which should allow it to continue to develop, and especially when it gets into the very warm and even shallower waters of the far northwest Gulf of Mexico. So some of the models do take it inland, even west of Galveston, but most of the models hug the Texas coastline, basically the orientation of the coast, and then drive it inland somewhere in the upper coastline of Texas or into southwest or even south central Louisiana. And again, it's a relatively decent cluster of the models, right? They're all in fairly good agreement where the center stays offshore through Wednesday, Thursday before landfall, slowly develops to begin with, and then strengthens a little bit more rapidly by the end of that forecast. So now we're going to look at the GFS model. I'm going to throw that into motion, and we'll take a look at what the GFS has to show for this area. Again, if I haven't mentioned it yet, it's 90% now to develop. So basically, it's almost a foregone conclusion that we're going to at least get a tropical depression out of this area, but there are signs that this could become a little bit stronger before it's all said and done. And again, we do have an active invest. It is 91L. Hurricane Center will be out there with the reconnaissance aircraft later today. We'll see what they find. So on the GFS model, and again, today is the 8th, very sloppy system, even as we get deeper into Monday. It wouldn't completely shock me if it's not until very late Monday or even on Tuesday before we get a depression. It just depends on how quickly the low-level center consolidates. But as we get into Tuesday and then into Wednesday, now we start to see a stronger system. Again, this could be a very compact, either depression or tropical storm named Francine. And by the way, almost all the models now have this becoming a tropical storm, okay? Where the center could be relatively close to the Texas coastline, but the strongest winds and the heaviest rain, obviously east of the center, but a fairly lopsided storm. So there is an opportunity that our friends here in Texas could actually see the center pass by relatively close, but not get the brunt of the impacts. Obviously, if it were to drive north closer to Houston, rather than kind of take the curve of the coastline, they would have more direct impacts, and that all still will bear out in what happens here. But at this point in time, it would look like it would be far, far upper Texas and into Louisiana that would bear the brunt of this system. And again, you're not looking at an extremely strong system here on the GFS. Again, we'll take a look at what's happening here over the last couple of days. They're trying to wrap up a bit more as we get into late Wednesday and early on Thursday. Another way to look at this, obviously, is what the winds are going to be doing here on the GFS. So let's look at that. These are going to be your surface-based sustained winds. So these are not just gusts. This would be basically what the GFS is saying would be the sustained winds associated with the system. Again, you want to talk about hugging the coastline, there you go. You want to talk about what could be a very small, very compact tropical storm, there you go as well. But compared to yesterday, there's not a lot of change in the GFS model, and that just shows you that it might be getting a little bit closer to an overall solution. Again, for today into tomorrow, very weak. This would be early on Tuesday. Again, more than likely, that's where we try and wrap up into a depression. And then those oranges indicate a little bit stronger system. Notice there's no crazy defined center of circulation here. Let's take a look at the wind speeds associated with this here. If, again, this product wants to cooperate, might still be loading up behind scenes. I think it's what's happening right now. It's still loading up the full run. Let's see, because I had this go for a full, apologize, I had to go for a full week, so I'm going to let this run out real quick. And then hopefully once it does, and it has pulled in the full week, I can pause this where I want it to be, and then we can take a look at those winds. All right, so let's do that. There we go. So you're looking at, within this area, high-end tropical storm. And again, these are sustained winds, okay? High-end tropical storm, but they're offshore. And because this is such a compact system, we could get relatively lucky here in Texas. Now, the problem is if this goes north, it's taking those winds with it. Now, on the GFS, it's more likely into the southwest side of Louisiana, all right? Closer to the Lafayette area, Houma area here, hopefully weakening a little bit, but still could be a high-end tropical storm. And let's see, that would be Thursday morning, right? So basically impacts late Wednesday night and into Thursday morning, and then moving onshore. Anywhere east of the center would have the highest potential for a storm surge, and all of that will be bared out in the discussion. Remember, we don't even have a depression yet from the Hurricane Center, which means we don't even have our first official cone as of right now. So that was the GFS deterministic rain and wind. This is the European model deterministic. Again, it's the main run of the European model. We'll look at the ensembles, which are the differences in the models, if you will. But on the European model, it's very close to the GFS. It hugs the Texas coastline a little bit closer, but still tries to bring it inland in southwest Louisiana. Again, it's almost just following the orientation of the Texas coastline. So because there's a little bit of a bend back west, excuse me, it avoids South Texas for the most part. And I have this at a very slow loop. Again, development on the European might be sometime on Tuesday rather than tomorrow, but then it does pick up intensity. And on the European model, it would be Tropical Storm Francine. And there it comes in again early on Tuesday into either upper Texas or southwest sides of Louisiana. This is a really slow plot of the HAFS A model of this invest. Again, likely to become Tropical Storm Francine. Now, these are wind gusts. Okay, and I do have these plotted out. You can see these. So the oil platforms in the northwest Gulf of Mexico could take the brunt of this. On the HAFS-A model, wind gusts are approaching hurricane strength or could even go above. And the HAFS-A, again, does have this becoming a tropical storm. And you can see as we get into early Thursday, some of the winds that could be moving into south central and the southwest sides of Louisiana. As far as like Galveston and Houston, again, because it's such a tight storm as far as being compact, being on the western side would be great. And then just being far enough away is another plus for you guys. Does not mean that this is not going to turn and directly impact you, but based on the models right now, it would be more of a shave for places like Galveston and Houston more than anything. All right. Now, these are those spaghetti plots. I showed you the track. This is the intensity. Showed you this yesterday. Majority of them had them as kind of a mid-range tropical storm. I told you I wouldn't be surprised if the intensity came up today, and that's exactly what happened with more of these tropical models producing a stronger tropical storm and a couple of them trying to push it into Category 1 hurricane strength. Right now, the consensus is more for this to become a tropical storm than a hurricane, but if it slows down a little bit, and if it stays out in the very hot bathwaters of the western Gulf of Mexico, can't rule out that becoming a hurricane as of now. Don't expect it, or don't put that as the highest probability, but we have to monitor how quickly this thing could develop in the next couple days. So as of now, 90% chance of development. Could become Tropical Storm Francine. Could become a hurricane, but again, more than likely a tropical storm. Damaging winds would obviously come along for the ride. Very heavy rainfall likely, rough seas and storm surge. Notice that I have not given any indications as far as the numbers with this as of yet. Want to get the first cone from the Hurricane Center before we really start talking about more specifics. But if you live in North Mexico, Texas, and Louisiana, obviously you need to very closely follow the situation with Invest 91L, which is more than likely going to become a depression and then a tropical storm within the next 48 hours. Back over to what's happening across the rest of our area. Again, we have two disturbances now in kind of the central and the eastern sides of the Atlantic that is going to be bearing watching. This other one is now an Invest as well. So I give you Invest 92L with winds of 30 miles an hour. Now, this was the one we were watching yesterday. Both of these were actually the ones we were watching yesterday. The Hurricane Center has just made these better chances of development. 60 for the one farther off towards the west, 50 for the one farther off towards the east. Notice that the cone of development, if you will, we don't have a track yet, but the development region from the hurricane center 7 days out does take it close to the Lesser Antilles. And I showed you the GFS model yesterday where it had a weak system moving through the Leeward Islands and into the U.S. and British Virgin Islands and Puerto Rico about a week from now. So let's go back over to the GFS model and talk about this one, because there's going to be some changes on the GFS deterministic with both of these. So let me get back over to reflectivity and loop this back up. So yesterday, this system came right through the Lesser Antilles, okay? Actually, this system. Do you notice there's not much with it right now? It's right here. It's because on the newest run of the GFS, it actually has it taking a much quicker turn to the north. So here it comes, right here, and then there it goes, all right? So yesterday, it was here, today it's here, and guess what? When you have a invest that doesn't even have a true low level of circulation as of yet, it's not shocking to see these models have variations run to run, right? Once we actually get that defined low, once we start seeing the other tropical models run, there's a lot better consensus with this. So here comes number one. The stronger one may end up being number two. Again, it's a very sloppy system. We've got a piece of energy here. We've got a piece of energy back here. We're just going to have to see how this all plays out. But both of these areas bear watching over the next 7 days. And obviously, again, the first one would be the one that would try and make a closer run to the Leeward Islands, the U.S. and British Virgin Islands, and Puerto Rico. But on this newest run, it's a little bit farther north and east. Does not mean it couldn't bobble right back closer to the islands like it did yesterday. On the ensembles, you'll actually see a few of those members. Again, there's 51 ensemble members of the GFS model. Bring them closer to the Lesser Antilles and the Virgin Islands and Puerto Rico. Now, the vast majority of them, as you can see this run back up here, do have that curve gaining latitude east of the islands. That would be great news. And again, I've got this on a very slow loop, so we'll take a look at this. You've got number one here, number two back here. They almost kind of, in these ensembles, start to kind of merge together. The far western ones would be the first one. The far eastern ones would be the secondary one. But this area just bears watching, okay? So if you live in these areas, you know, I'll keep you updated through the week ahead. Not any impacts over the next 5 or 6 days, but again, by this time next weekend, we'll have to see how this wants to track out. On the European model, it's about the same scenario where most of the ensembles have both of these recurving back into the central Atlantic and hopefully staying fish storms. You can again see there's a couple of ensemble members which brush the Leeward Islands in the areas that I just mentioned, but most of the ensembles keep them moving north far enough east to not have direct impacts. And then it'd be very interesting, of course, what would happen with this area of low pressure. Can it get back into the Atlantic once it moves through the United States southeast, and could it redevelop back out there? Rainfall total wise, this is going to be a big issue for the northern Gulf Coast, regardless of development. Very heavy rainfall. Again, there's a maximum on this map of over 18 inches of rain. And if you're in millimeters, it's pretty simple. 1 inch is 25 millimeters. So some extremely heavy rainfall. Hopefully the majority of that stays just offshore, right? Because Louisiana and Texas have had a lot of rain lately already, but there will be a lot of heavy rain for the United States Southeast. Some of that heavier rain will trickle back into portions of Mexico. Still could see some solid rainfall totals across Central America. It will be a little bit drier forecast over the next several days for Cuba, the Bahamas, Jamaica, the Cayman Islands, the Dominican Republic, and Haiti. And then with this second invest coming in, and some of the tropical moisture moving in right now with a disturbance that's not going to develop, just some good heavy rain over the Lesser Antilles, the Virgin Islands, and Puerto Rico. Again, 2, 4, 5 inches of rain. It's certainly possible. 50, 100, 125 millimeters. If you're a boater, please keep in mind what's going on in the Gulf. Obviously, some kicked up surf and sea conditions there. Please monitor the situation. Wouldn't advise going out in the Gulf over the next several days. This next disturbance, again, could certainly elevate the swells across the eastern sides of the islands, and in some islands, the western sides, just depending on the orientation of the winds, and then back into the Turks and Caicos and the Bahamas, where in the exposed waters of the Atlantic, we could see some higher surf and sea conditions as well. Friends, you know, I appreciate you guys. Thank you so much for following us across all of our social media platforms, Instagram, TikTok, X, Facebook, My Media Mundo at meteomundo@gmail.com if you would like to send me a picture or a video. We'd love to hear from you guys that way. Show this on these videos. Again, thank you so much for liking this video. Thank you for subscribing to Meteo Mundo. You guys have a great rest of your Sunday. I will be back tomorrow with the latest on those invest areas for you. I'll see you then. Have a great one.